There we go.
I was like on your page just
Writing here is like horrible because I have a window and a lamp and anyway. How are you?
girl.
I know. Does 2020 have a 90-day return policy? Because I need to take advantage of it
Right now.
right now.
To,
I'll need to
today
wait another 30 days. I can just do it right.
today before 5.
I went into this year, I was all like, I'm going to be positive and put all my negative stuff that's happened the past 4 years behind me and start looking ahead. And then the universe was like, hold my beer, bitch.
Look, come along for the ride, right? Oh my gosh. Well, happy Taylor Swift land, right?
I mean, yeah, it could be worse. I'm just saying there could be worse people can look up to.
No, I didn't even realize it was a thing. Who was I talking to? I was talking to who was it? I'm thinking, oh, it was one of my doctors. I went in for a doctor's appointment. This was right before the Super Bowl. And she was like, aren't you sick of Taylor Swift? And I was like, what are you talking? What? And it was just like a random question she asked. And I was like, I don't even know what's going on.
I mean, is your Dr. White?
She is. She is. She was overher.com. She
Let me just say, here's another case of white women hating on white women who are more successful.
is that what it was?
Listen, I truly believe that white women are our own worst enemies. We totally are. And again, this goes back to the question about sisterhood and
Yeah.
but it's the competition for resources, for men, for wealth, for everything.
Yeah.
It goes back centuries.
Listen, it's a real thing. So when she asked that question, I was like, what? I was so oblivious to Swifty land like that. I really was. And when she said it, she was like, she's like everywhere. Aren't you sick of her? And I was
I
like,
guess, I mean, but she hasn't asked to be everywhere. I mean, that's my thing is like people are like, oh, it's a PR relationship. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't think it is because I don't know that I want that kind of scrutiny on me, even
yeah,
for PR purposes. But,
yeah.
yes, she's a global superstar and probably the most famous person in the world and a gabillionaire. But it's not like she's out here asking. She didn't ask the NFL to focus on her. She's just going to the game trying to support her boyfriend. She's trying to live as normal of a life as she can, being who she is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And, and people are just hating on her for that. If she didn't go to the games, it would have been like, oh, she's too good to go to the game. She doesn't want to go sit with the common people. It's like she can't damn win. And so I just, I sort of feel sorry for her, honestly. I think there's some things about Taylor Swift that bother me. I think she plays into the whole um OG white women thing sometimes, like but I mean, she plays it for herself, and I understand that, but at the same time, I also feels like she gets a lot of unnecessary hate about
Yeah.
stuff when she's just trying to live a life and have a life.
Well, that's what I said to her. Well, I didn't say that. I was just like, one, I don't know what you're talking about. Two, like her song is always going to be my favorite because my 4-year-old danced to it at her first recital. So she came out to one of her songs, and she's all like, I'm not against her. She's a
But
star.
yeah, I mean I actually I did not like her really at all until I watched that Netflix documentary Miss Americana or whatever it is that they did about her, and I watched that documentary. She's incredibly smart. I mean, the woman she is incredibly smart. She's incredibly good marketing genius. All the stuff she does is not her.
Clearly,
It's her. Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, she's crazy. And I mean, her lyrics are great. I mean, that's why young women love her, is because she speaks to the things that they feel, in all races. And
Right.
it's just, and I mean, so I can't hate on her for being a good businesswoman. I do think there are some things she does that, that she shouldn't be doing for a 34-year-old, but I think she needs to
What?
stop.
Wait, I want to know. Like what?
Well, I mean, like I don't know if you watch the Grammys, But you know, she was just, I don't know if she's been drinking, but somebody to stop her from drinking at award shows if she hasn't. But she was like slapping the guy who's like her co-writer, best friend on the head and just acting silly. I don't think that was a place for her to announce her new album. I thought that was incredibly poor taste.
Ah,
You know, I don't, I understand what everybody says about Beyonce and like, well, why isn't Beyonce? But it's our society. They're not, you know, they're not going to do Beyonce.
well, I
I hate it,
mean,
but I'm just saying. I mean,
yeah,
I will say that Beyonce and Taylor, at least on the surface, have made great strides to try to support each other. You know,
they have. They
public,
really have.
they're going to each drop, you know, flying across the world to go to each other's concert promotions and all this stuff, right? So I mean, they have consciously done that, whether
Yeah.
they, you know, truly believe that in their soul or not, but they have done that for that reason, because people are like pit them against each other. But Beyonce does not have the fan following that Taylor Swift has. And maybe that's because Taylor Swift's white and there are more white people. I don't know why, but she
Right.
doesn't. And, you know, Beyonce didn't do the size of a tour that Taylor Swift did. I mean,
Yeah.
she hasn't released as many albums as Taylor Swift is. Doesn't mean she's worse. It's just the volume of the things is not the same.
Yeah. Well, you know, and that's the whole thing, right? But they did make a conscious effort to really support each other,
Yeah,
you know, and I'm all about that. Like, let's support
exactly.
each other, like, and what they feel in their hearts, like, we'll never know. Like,
Yeah.
but I think if you do something, you're not going to,
Publicly, they're doing the right thing by doing that, in my opinion.
but I don't think they would do it and really not feel something inside. Like,
Yeah.
that's a big commitment
I
to,
mean,
you know what I
Taylor
mean?
Swift has been very vocal about being she gets a lot of flack, you know, for being for some of the things she does, um but you know, she's definitely a liberal, and she, you know, and she's democratic leaning, and you know, she supports you know, abortion rights, women's autonomy over their bodies, gay rights. I mean, you know, she, all the things, right? I mean, she's gotten a lot of flack. You know, I don't know if you've seen this, you know, the whole thing about, I know we're way off topic, the whole thing about her
This is it.
oh, this is oh, we're talking about anything. The whole thing about her from Fox News, you know, being a plant, and that the whole thing, the whole thing, her thing with Travis Kelce, NFL, everything is just to get Biden reelected. And I'm like, y'all stretching now. Y'all stretching like Flex
That's
Armstrong stretching.
ridiculous.
She is a Pentagon asset. I ain't lying. Go Google that shit on TikTok. Sorry.
Like, how did what like that doesn't even, like, my brain can't even wrap my brain around it. Like,
I
what?
think at the last election, she didn't even say go vote for Joe Biden, but she did say you need to register to vote. And when she did, like, registrations among, especially I think young people, but women of a certain age, like say 18 to 25, I don't know what it was, I can't remember, went up like 35,000 overnight, which is great that she's doing that. But
Yeah.
they know, but they also feel like, you know, people will vote for who she votes for, which may or may not be true.
Mm-hmm.
And she did show, she never said, but she had a picture on her Instagram of her holding a tray that said Biden 2020 or whatever it was. And so, you know, so she didn't like say I'm supporting Biden, but that basically was her saying I'm supporting Biden.
Right.
But
Oh God. Fox News.
no, I don't know. What is racism to me? I saw the questions.
Listen, you ready to move on with the questions? Listen, it's
Have a
so
whole Taylor Swift episode some other time.
listen, I feel like we're gonna have to keep this conversation going. First of all, thank you for coming back.
White woman guest once a month. We can call it White Woman Wednesdays.
Yeah, Black and White Woman Wednesdays. I don't know what happened with the previous one, but that one was epic. You have no idea how I wanted to take my computer and throw it out the window.
It'll show up one day probably somewhere.
I don't know. Zoom deleted like all of my recordings.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see if they're like on their server somewhere.
I'm like, go to the 20th floor and just pull it off. Like, it's still there. You know what I mean? Like, you guys
Oh, somewhere on a server for them, yeah.
exactly. And so I told my husband the other day, I was like, you know, these people that have these servers, you know, all these recording platforms and everything, they've got to be in like 50-foot buildings with servers on every floor. It has to be that. I don't know if that's true or not, but that makes sense. But so the video was deleted. So I apologize about that. But I'm so glad you said yes again.
I'm always gonna talk.
Second time, sick. And we like, it fell completely off of everybody's calendar. So, Julie, I love you. Thank you.
I'm
You
glad to
look
be here.
amazing too today. I love it.
My hair's
I
grown.
see your curls, girl.
No, they're just grown. This is as long as my hair's ever been in my life.
Really? It looks great. Do you like it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to see how long I can get it before it drives me insane. I'm not going to grow down to like my waist like some uber Christian evangelical woman, but just
You're so
this
against
this may be about it. But yeah, and this when it gets summertime, it's going to drive me insane. It's going to be so hot. I'll be wearing it up all the time.
them. Right. You're
Yeah.
gonna shave it off. You're gonna shave it off. It looks great. Looks great. So today we're talking about
You want
everything.
to start this like for real?
No, this is it. It's already
We
started.
don't care. Okay.
We have this is us being us,
Okay.
right? And so this is great. I love it. I'm not gonna have them to edit any of it.
Let's do a podcast.
You should. You want to?
Yeah, I'll totally do a podcast with you. Talk
Awesome.
about everything.
Everything.
Anything.
And
Yeah.
because I am a Christian, right?
I consider myself a Christian. I don't say that so much anymore because I think there's a lot of people who claim to be Christian and but are really what I call religious, and they've spoiled the word Christianity because
Yeah.
they do not act like Christians. At least not my version of what a Christian should be. My
I mean,
version of Christian, not Old Testament. If you want to be a true Christian, in my opinion,
Old Testament. Uh-oh,
you
here we go.
follow. You follow. What did I say? Did I say Old Testament?
You
You
did.
follow the word of Jesus Christ because
Yeah.
supposedly that is the only person who actually spoke in the Bible and was recorded, right?
Right.
So look at what Jesus said.
Okay. Listen. What was that saying that was back in like the 90s or the early 2000s?
What would Jesus do? Yeah. WWJD. Everybody had little bracelets, remember? Yeah. I mean, Jesus said, as I have loved you, love one another. And that doesn't mean romantic love. That means agape love, which is godly love, which means to show compassion and kindness and empathy to others, which is what we're sorely lacking in this world.
Preach to the people.
I mean, to me, that's talking about racism. That's a huge part of, plays into racism because you don't have the ability to have this compassion and kindness and empathy for people that look different from you. And
You know what? That is so true. I was a part of this particular training. I won't name it. And it was there was racism there, right? And the person that was being racist still has not said that she was racist. Even though it was so obvious, even there was other white women in the room that was apologizing on her behalf.
Well, you asked the question you sent me about what is racism to me. And I mean, I think it's the most basic example, description, definition, which is, judging someone else on the color of their skin, their ethnicity, right? And then you ask, is it a mental illness? I don't think it's a mental illness. I think it could be a subsymptom of a mental illness, but I think it is a social construct that is learned. Because if you think going back to children, little children, until they're told by their parents, there's a difference between you and Veronica, Julie, that, just because of the color of your skin, there's a difference between you. Either showing that or telling that, like, very forcefully showing and telling that, or doing it in subtle ways, either one, they reinforce that construct. And that's when they start to realize, white people have started the whole thing, of course, with the hierarchy of the world, right? Because they needed to be on top, in charge and control and power. And
the hierarchy of the US.
Yes, correct. I think some of it goes around the world to a certain extent, but it's definitely more in the US.
Where it started,
yes.
And it's more prominent, and now it is a global thing. Yeah. But yes, I agree with you.
I mean, and even the fact that there are not, white people are called white. What is white? You're called African American or black. You're called black, but Hispanic American, we should, I mean, some people do call us European Americans on TikTok and stuff, but we don't call ourselves that, I mean, but really every other ethnicity or race has like a heritage, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like a, like goes back to where you originally, or your race originated from. We don't talk that way. It's just white. So then you're breaking it down to the color of your skin, not your geographic location, but to the color of your skin. I'm
Mm.
white, you're black, you're brown, you're whatever, and some shade of something. And yeah, and for me, because you ask about me, I think, and I've, I follow other women on TikTok that are going through, other white women that
Mm-hmm.
are going through the same, deconstructing and stuff. First of all, says I think everybody's racist. I think even black people. I mean, you can't, not toward white people, not toward white people, but can you tell me, and don't have to answer this question, that you have never, ever had a negative thought about somebody that is not your skin color, about the way they drive, or their the amount of children they have, or I'm like giving out some stereotypes here, right? Or whatever. I mean, I don't think you can be white, racist against white people, because I think everybody has those thoughts, even if you never verbalize them, even if you don't, do any kind, that you have some negative thought about
Like
somebody.
a prejudice against a
Yes,
certain group of people.
yes,
That's kind of what
a
one of the
racial stereotype,
is. Yes, 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 yes.
and I think everybody has those thoughts, so if you call that racism, you call
Mm-hmm.
it racism, you call it a racial stereotype or racial prejudice, it's racism to a certain degree. So everybody has it, but it's like levels, right?
It's so crazy. It's
This
so
is my thing. I mean, I was raised, and we talked about this last time, in a very small southern town that
mm-hmm,
was majoritively black. When I
mm-hmm.
went to public school, in elementary school, 2/3 of my class was little black children, and 1/3 were little white children. All my friends are black. I did not. I mean, my parents did not talk. We went to a white church, and of course, there's black churches, which I didn't understand at the time, but my mother never, said anything bad about, I mean, like, I don't remember her like being a super racist. She might have said something about, like, don't remember her going around going, don't talk to those kids, you don't need to touch them, they're dirty, whatever. Like, it never that.
Yeah.
And and when I remember when I moved to the town I lived in now, which is when I was in middle school, that there was no black kids at my school because it's a larger town, so there were more schools. And like,
Yeah.
there was like 10 black kids in my school. I'm like, where are all the damn black kids? I realized like they lived in areas of town, right? Because
Yeah.
the town I came from, there was one high school, one middle school, one elementary school, kind of thing.
You must have been on the other side of the tracks at that point.
Yes. So it was just a very small town that was very industrial. And
Yeah.
so, attracted certain type, lower income white people and people of color,
Yeah.
probably Hispanic people there now, because,
Yeah.
like the immune live now. But
Mm-hmm.
and so it was just, so I guess I grew up in that. So at a young age, I was I guess exposed to different races. I don't know, like it wasn't a thing to me. So I never, and I've always been liberal leaning, Democrat, whatever the heck you want to call it, but social, whatever. But I also, I mean, I would have never have called myself racist, but because I wasn't like overtly running around using the N word and stuff, like waving the KKK flag. I thought they were stupid, but I had a lot of the passive aggressive racism, and like, what do they call microaggressions, that I
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people have, and they don't even realize that it's racism.
Mm-hmm.
Do that, and it's because it's so ingrained in them, and they've seen it and lived it for so long that they don't even understand that saying some of the things they say or doing some of the things they do are racist, like touching black women's hair. Like, would you touch somebody else's hair? No, I mean, just like that, you even have the audacity and the feeling that you can do that, right? And it's just, like, I did a post on that on TikTok later on about this girl who, as an example of that, a young black woman that had really long braids, and she talked about she got them done over a holiday. When she went back to work, they had like some kind of work luncheon, and this white woman came up to her and said, "Can I touch your hair?" And she said no. And the white woman acted like she didn't hear her and said, "Can I touch your hair?" And she said no. And she reached out to touch it anyway after she's told her no twice. And she like batted her hand away. Didn't hit her, just like, batted her hand away. And the lady like lost her mind. And then some other white woman comes running over to defend, like, you hit her. And she's like, I just left the situation because I didn't want it to escalate. But I mean, she's not, black women are dogs. I mean, after she asked for consent, which was great,
Right.
which I would have never asked anyway, because that's weird to me. But then she said no twice, and she still reached out and did it anyway.
So what is that the microaggression that you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
just thinking that, I mean, I don't know, just thinking that you can touch anybody, but certainly it's just, I don't know, just making a big deal about it. Like, why is their hair so important for you? Why is black people's hair so important for you to touch? Why do you, I don't know. The whole thing is just weird to me. So I did this post on TikTok. Sorry, my dog is barking. I don't know. Oh, Postman's here. And people, a lot of white women came on there and said, we didn't know that was a thing. Like, they did not know that was a thing.
So white women didn't know they couldn't touch black women's hair.
No, they had no idea that it was inappropriate to do that. Like,
but is it a thought? Is it a thought of let me touch your hair? I don't think it's a thought for you. It's never been a thought for you, right?
Yes.
So maybe
understand the cultural significance of it for y'all.
Got it. Okay.
And so, and then also, and also there's just cultural differences.
Yeah.
And some of them are like, that's ridiculous. But then a lot of them are like, I've never thought about that, but thank you for explaining it. And I did explain like why, and I knew that because I've had friends in my life and stuff, and knew that was a thing, and so I was aware. But it's and I will say I do that too with little black babies, because I just I do. That's different because they're babies.
It's a baby, right? So as you're saying that, I'm like, does it matter to me if someone asks to touch my hair? And I know culturally how, because Solange, Beyonce's sister, has a whole song about don't touch my hair, right? But I don't, to me, and I'm probably different, a little bit different, right? To me, it's kind of flattering that there's an interest of,
if they ask, but in that thread I did, there was tons of black women who talked about white women who just touched their hair without asking, just came up and started, groping their hair.
Oh no.
Or groping their children's hair or whatever.
No. Now that is a problem. Now, if you ask me, that's it. There's a politically correct way to do that, right? And then you have to honor what the response is. Exactly. So,
but I think that it was that they did it, that white men felt they had the privilege to do that they didn't have to ask, if that makes sense. Okay. Some of those coming across.
So what's funny, Jolie, is for me, like, I might, if we were around each other, I might be like touching your hair.
Yeah, people touch my hair. If we were friends, that would be different, But even still, I wouldn't touch my black girlfriend's hair. But anyway, I was gonna say, you talked about how I came to realize all this stuff. So when I turned 50, I had a lot of major life changes in a short period of time. In about 18 months, I divorced, I lost my job, I lost 2 friends, one to cancer, one to heart disease, lost both my dogs. I mean, it was a very traumatic, dark time of my life.
Yeah.
And I started going to therapy, and I had been to therapy before, but I always got out when it got hard. And this is what I was saying, I found out from other white women I follow on TikTok that are going through these same kind of processes, is in the process of learning about you and learning why you do the things you do, especially the things that are not beneficial to you, you learn bad things about you. And before, as a person, I had bailed, and I'm not just racist stuff, I had bailed when it got to the hard part because I didn't want to face that stuff. I didn't want to figure out why I, did this or that or this or that in my relationships with people, whatever they were, romantic or otherwise. And this time I said, I'm going to stay in. I'm still in 4 years later, 4+ years later, because I was like, I'm not going to stop until I work out all my things, right? And I know I may not solve my problems, but at least I can know what triggers them or why they come, what led to them, so I can manage that trigger, right? And part of that was understanding, and a lot of it came out around the election because of all the stuff that was happening. And some of it wasn't even thoughtful, it just sort of like came about. that yes, I had done my own micro. I mean, I remember calling one of my best friends is a younger black woman, and I called her. I was like, "I'm so sorry for every time I probably said something really stupid." She's like, "Stop." I was like, "I know," but she's like, "It happens all the time." I said, "I know, but it shouldn't happen for me because I'm your friend." But I'm
Yeah.
better now, you know. And I said, and I want you to call me on that stuff, you know, going forward if I do something and don't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to help. You know, I said it's not your job to make me a better person, but you know, call me on it.
Yeah.
And it changed our relationship a lot because now we have a much more open relationship in the fact that we can tell each other hard things and we don't get pissed off, but and especially her to me,
Mm-hmm.
especially her to me.
Yeah.
And so if I go to her for advice, and we have a whole thing, like, because she's pretty direct. I mean, I'm pretty direct, but she's even more direct than me. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want advice today. I just want your empathy. You know, so I tell her up front, but I'm like, I want your
Back up,
advice.
back up, turn it down.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know, but I can, you know, but I think before it would have like hurt my feelings on some level, and you know, and I probably was thinking in my head on some level, she's just being a sassy black woman, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and but that wasn't it, you know, and so, but I mean, yeah, I had think, and then the process of that viral video and all of the outpouring of comments and support from the black women on TikTok after that, I learned so much more about that I didn't, you know, realize things that I was doing, just things in general in the, you know, world in the US. And it just really opened my eyes a lot
So,
about, you
do
know,
you
things.
want to share some of those things that you were doing?
I mean, I don't even know. I mean, they were like so, but probably like more like thought
Subtle
things that then affected my
behaviors.
behaviors. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I don't, yeah, because that's why I don't think racism is a mental illness, because like mental illnesses usually have a physical manifestation. And I
Mm-hmm.
guess racism sort of does, but it's more about, anyway, well, like I just said, like, you know, I probably had interactions with black people, especially women, and if they were like, you know, pushed back or challenged me, I'd be like, oh, well, they're just being a sassy black woman, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I'll be like, well, I'm just not going to, you know, communicate with them that way anymore, or I'm just going to ignore them or not include them in the conversation. I mean, I don't know that I did these things, but I'm thinking that those are examples that you don't even think of as being racist, but are
Yeah.
racist. But looking back on them now, you're like, woo. So yeah. And I think just even understanding the cultural differences between white people and black people, you know, as far as like the whole bathing scandal, seasoning and things like that. But I think it's just that, and in general too, that white people, I feel like they can make fun or poke at stereotypes of black people, but when that is reversed, white people get really pissed off because it's like, you should not be allowed to make fun of me because
Mm-hmm.
you're beneath me in some way in my mind because of
Mm-hmm.
racism. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, I can make fun of you or pick at you or, you know, or whatever, but you can't do that to me. And if you do that
Yeah.
to me, then, you know, I have to give some reasoning for that because you shouldn't be able to do that. I mean, even,
Right.
you know, it's just a lot of little things like that that I think that, again, it goes back to you know, white children being raised to believe that they're better than all other little children.
Silly is that?
I
Huh?
know. Well, I mean,
Like,
at some point, I don't know what point that changes, you know, but
because of the color of your skin, a person thinks I'm better than you. Just it's literally just the color of your skin.
and I have to believe that, and I'm not black, obviously, and I'm not going to talk to anyone's lived experience, but my own as a white woman, that affects the black community, like the way you view yourselves. I know it affects the way you act and react with white people because, you know, you have language coding and the looking in the eye. I mean, like, you know, you have safety measures in place for each other as a community. Does that make sense?
What do you mean? Clarify that for me.
Well, like, because you know that you're going to get some of the backlash you're going to get. You, you know, speak a certain
Well,
way in front of white people that you don't speak in front of each other. You know, support each other in ways that maybe we don't even recognize, like the, you know, walking in the room and acknowledging each other
okay.
non-verbally, you know, things like that. And so it has, I mean, it affects you. You have to like not know that sometimes when something's said to you, you can't respond to it. You can't defend yourself. you
Mhm.
can't, call a racism out. I mean, I think that is changing more and more, but at the same time,
So as you're saying that, I'm like, because for me, I'm gonna call you on it.
and two, I think it's where you're raised. And
Mhm,
because I don't, I think in the South it is different too. I mean,
mm,
well, for example, I'm just thinking of my friend again specifically because she basically said to me, it happens all the time.
mm,
I just, she says I ignore it. And maybe it is ignoring it, but maybe it is also knowing that if you say something or push back, especially if it's your boss or somebody that you are looking, that you get something from that's beneficial to you,
yeah.
that could negatively impact you. And so you just choose not to fight that fight, which has to do some kind of a damage to those people internally.
Well, the damage was already there from
Yeah.
birth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's already like this for those that are still kind of shackled in that mindset of I can't be free. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? The damage has always been there. So it's
There's a
not
lot of
really,
Black parents that still teach that, but you have to teach it again for survival, like for boys, for young Black men.
yeah,
The
yeah,
talk that you have with your kid, your young Black male kids at a certain time to say, don't be walking around in a hoodie after midnight because you'll get shot and killed or whatever. I mean, and that's just to even. I no white parent can ever fathom having that conversation with their child ever. I mean, you may say, don't get drunk, don't drive drunk, don't, if you're having fooling around, but wear a condom, whatever. But you're not like, don't go in a certain place after a certain time at night, wearing certain things or doing certain things because you will get, or just
yeah.
existing, you will get killed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
So what do you think in your awareness of when you are aware of microaggressions? And even in general, really for that matter, what do you think needs to be done to change that? Because I still believe that racism is a mental illness. I really do. When there's mental illness, it can be biological, it can be taught, it could be something that you learn because of your environment. And mental illness is the mind, your whatever you think you do. So you think it and you act it, right? So, what are some things that you think we can do? I think this conversation is one thing to help with it. Um, but is it something you think that can be really fixed?
I want, I don't know. I want to say yes, because I want to hope that over time, as younger generations become, like you're looking at Gen Z and, Gen A and all those kids who are very see all societal bullshit that goes on in general and are like trying to fix that. They grew up in a different time than us where,
Mhm.
they don't feel the same and their parents don't feel the same because like I'm their parents or even millennials are their parents. And so it's different. So I think but time's going to take a long time. I mean, it's already taken a long time. And I think there will always be some level of racism because there just will be. But this is a hard question for me because knowing what I know about my post, and I'll just say because if people are not in the mental space of
Mhm.
wanting to listen and
Yeah.
desiring to listen and learn and accept that criticism or that feedback about you are being right, because racist is, I mean, people don't, I'm not racist, because it's a bad thing. I'm 100% racist. It's like I said, I think everybody's racist, but nobody wants to admit that because it seems like you're saying something really bad about yourself. I mean, it is bad, but but it's just you have to be open to it, to doing it. And if you're not open, you're just going to shut. I mean, how many tens of thousands of people probably watch my video and just listen to the first line, which is, yes, I think white women are scared of Black women. And they just stopped and started like cussing me out. And they didn't even listen to the rest of it or try to understand what my meaning was behind that.
Yeah.
And I just think some people are just not willing to question themselves. I mean, that was my whole thing is,
Well,
it's
then
very difficult.
there's like this point, like once you like in order for you to like look at it like face to face, you really have to be willing to let go of privilege. And who wants to let go of privilege?
Exactly. Well, that was my whole point about white women is white women, gays, black men, black people that align themselves against their best interests by voting for certain people. I'm not going to try to get political, but it's like they value their proximity to whiteness more than they value their identity as a black person or a gay person or a woman,
They
and they
can.
don't want to
They
give
can. I'm
up.
not going to say all.
Yes, yeah. They don't want to give up that. Well, I mean, this is a lot of generalization, obviously, but they don't want to give up that proximity to whiteness
Mm-hmm.
to live their true life. And
Yeah.
that's what you have to do. And that is hard for some people
Why is that hard?
because the privilege that comes with it.
Mhm.
And I
What are
think,
those privileges?
huh?
What are the privileges?
I can go out to in Kroger or whatever Target and make a huge scene and be a total Karen, and nobody's going to come arrest me. If you did the same thing, you'd probably get the police coming in there and hauling you off in handcuffs. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's just it could be the same level of, I'll say violence, but of anger, whatever. But the way that you're reacted to is totally different. I mean, the young white men who get pulled over drunk or dry, all they get let off, not even go to jail. But young black men will again get shot or then killed. I mean, it's just for stupid things like get pulled over just at suspect because they're like, oh, you're black, you must be doing something wrong. I mean, there's tons of there's tons of, and I mean, even things like where you get to live, where you go to school, the medical care you receive. I mean, look how poor medical care is for black women and how they're still one of the worst demographics for maternal care and prenatal care.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just all the things. And you ask about reparations, and I sort of want to talk.
Yeah, yeah. So let me say this to everyone. So this is my second interview with Julie, right? So the first one got deleted. And so a lot of these questions, she's bringing them up because I asked her the first time, which was actually, I think it was last year.
Was last year.
Yeah, it was last year when we did our first interview together. So she remembers those questions. Plus,
Yeah.
so and she's bringing them up. But just to get that background. Also, Julie, before you go any further, can you tell the people who you are and
Yeah.
how we got connected?
So yeah, so I'm a 54. Well, how old am I?
Are
I'm
you
a
25?
54-year-old, obviously
25.
white woman, single white, divorced white woman living in the South in Georgia. I did a video on TikTok after the 2020 election, and it was right after the election, and Stacey Abrams was a gubernatorial candidate in Georgia. And she lost. And a lot of the reason she lost was because white women voted for her opponent. And everybody was on TikTok bitching and pissing about how back-ass Georgia was that they didn't vote for her, and how great she was. And of course, there's also the Marjorie Taylor Greene and Herschel Walker bullshit going on in our state. And I was just really like, I was sort of fed up about it because these it was, and so I just got on there and I said, and I made a short 60-second video. And I said, white women were never going to vote for Stacey Abrams because they could not tolerate having a black woman over them. And I said they were just never going to do it. And like immediately this black woman came on and asked the question, are white women really that scared of black women? And then I did a 3-minute follow-up video, and that is the one that went viral. And I said, yes, I believe they are. Now, this was totally off the cuff, totally unrehearsed, speaking from my heart and head. And the gist of it was, I said that white women were scared of black women. It wasn't a physical fear, but it was a mental fear, because black women live very authentically and are supportive of each other and supportive of their community, and white women do not live authentically. And so we see black women and we want to be that. We want to be authentic. We want to have that level of freedom, but we cannot allow ourselves to go there because of the way we have been trained and raised, and our proximity to white privilege and all the things. And that is why we fear black women, because we fear what they make us face. And that was a line I used in the video, and I think that's true. I mean, it's very, when you see someone and they're doing, I mean, it's just like, just even being I'm childless, I don't have children by choice. And that's another thing people discriminate you against. Like, oh, you're selfish because you don't have children, you're blah 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 blah. And so I just think, there's, when people see something and I think they're jealous of it, instead they turn it around as a negative on you. oh, well, you don't have children. Gosh, I wish I hadn't had kids, but you must be selfish. You must be a horrible person. You only think about yourself. You're going to die alone in a home. Nobody's going to love you. It's stupid arguments, but I think it's the same way for, for white women and black women. When they see black women and they see them being successful and being, you know, again, authentic and supporting each other and having a sisterhood that we don't have in a lot of ways, that they're like, oh, well, that's just because of X, Y, and Z. And it's stereotypical racisty, prejudicey stuff that they, lean back on. And
Yeah.
and so yeah, but that was the main gist of it. But again, a lot of people didn't listen to the whole message, but I stand by it still a year and a half later what I said.
So I saw that video, and that's kind of what I was like, oh my gosh, I love her. And so I had to interview her, and here we are. But, in that point, we're going to wrap up here in just a few moments. But in that point, it's at the same time, it's like Black women need to recognize the strength that we have, like just in being Black and how we show up and how we dress and our hair and our style and our confidence and all that. So it's like, really, there's a freedom there that whites and other races they recognize it, like they see it, they want it in a lot of ways, and don't know how to actually like embody it for themselves.
So they tear you down.
Say it again.
So they tear you down.
Right, because they're right. So because you're and so they tear you down in the process of that, and then you believe that you are exactly what they say you are, but you're really so much more. Exactly. You're so much more, right? And so there's power in walking in your authenticity. So you were in the original interview, I recall, and I've actually told people, I feel like I've shared it in sessions too, where you talked about that I guess the way, like that servanthood that white women have towards white men. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit more about that right now?
Yeah, and again, I think some of that may be cultural, to more in certain areas of the country like the South more, but I mean, white women were raised for years, centuries, it's only been fairly recent in like the 70s, but just isn't that long ago in the 80s when white women entered the workforce. Before then, they were housewives, and they not only were housewives, but they had Black domestic help that raised their kids and cleaned their house. And so, they were raised to become, what do they call it, the MRS degree, but to get married. Their whole goal in life was to get married, have kids, keep a house, be the perfect housewife, right? That was their life goal. They didn't have any other, aspirations. If you were a profession, you were like a nurse or a teacher, and that was it. And I think that, we were that in turn, because you didn't have a profession, you were beholden to men, literally financially, because you could not support yourself. I mean, I think women couldn't even get a credit card till like sometime in the 70s or something, like their own, or get a bank account without their husband co-signing on it. And that's all women. But it's just in that, and that's the whole thing with feminism and stuff. That's a whole nother subject. But there's an intersectionality there. But just the fact that white women literally could not separate themselves from white men without being broke or considered a slut, or I was gonna say hoe anyway, or or whatever, like that. They knew that they would not be successful in life, however you view success, without being married to a white man, right? I mean, that was their life success, was to be a white wife to a white man, have little white kids in your little white neighborhood, and and that was what you did. Yeah. And I think even more so, I think it's probably only been in the 90s and 2000s when women really have started, white women have really started paving our own way, having our own careers, trying to climb the corporate ladder and all that kind of stuff. And in that regard, Black women are years ahead of us. And that's why there's so much, I feel like, battling, in the corporate world between white and Black women. Because y'all have, like you said, y'all have a longer history in some ways of being professionals or working outside the home. And so you have learned how to do that and be successful at it. And I feel like a lot of white women are still learning how to do that and be successful at it.
It's so interesting because when you gave that scenario before, I had never looked at it. That was not something I was aware of, that it was really like, that's the whole thing. Like women, and till this day, white women still look at their husbands or males in general as leaders.
Yeah,
And they
there's
kind
still
of,
older white women like boomers and even some older Gen Xers. They don't know, they're still housewives. They don't know what the finances are in their family. They don't pay the bill. I mean, women didn't pay bill. They knew nothing. Like,
wow.
and they had nothing. They didn't have savings. They had nothing. So even if their husband beat them, if they were cheating on them, they couldn't leave. They couldn't leave. They couldn't leave and take the kids. They could leave, but they had to leave the kids behind because they couldn't afford to support them. They couldn't get a job because they weren't skilled, or they wouldn't be allowed to get a job because they were a woman. I mean, there was a lot of, yeah. I mean, and it doesn't mean white women get a pass, but there are there are some reasons why they were beholden to white men, but they don't have to do that anymore. And I think that may be the disconnect, now that I'm sort of talking about it, is learning that we aren't beholden to white men anymore. And I think if the majority of white women can come to realize that, that it'll change, because all women, we're the majority. Women are the majority, and we'd be so much stronger together. And if white women could come to understand that they, again, are not helping themselves by tying themselves to white men, then and join with black women, then we would all take over the world, and it'd be such a better place.
I'm, I'm just saying that is such, like, we're so much different, but so much alike at the same time, right? In our struggles that we have. And so this just is such an important conversation. And, I really hope that people will grasp everything that's been shared from both perspectives, in terms of just sisterhood, being a woman, whether you're white, whether you're black, how much we are alike, actually. And that, there's freedom that exists for both of us, like for everybody. And in a lot of ways, you already walk in that freedom. So that perceived, or actually is, and a lot of times it's not even perceived, like there's no conceptualization that you're living within this box. Like if you could just see that and step out, like you're already living in freedom.
Yeah, you're already living in freedom, but you just can't let yourself go. And it's scary. It is scary. I mean, I divorced after 23 years of marriage, and I should have divorced. This is, I think, bad about my ex, probably 10 years into it. But I
Mm,
didn't want to leave, even though we were childless and it was the 90s and I had a career, because it's hard. It's hard to go out on your own. It's hard to like buy your own house, pay your own bills. Now it's hard to have my own business. I have no one to back me up. It is me, and so it is. And to that regard, it is very scary to step outside of that comfort of having that financial backup and having that support in that way. In some cases, emotional backup too, but more so the financial, physical, whatever parts of it. Not physical as in sex, but like, you know,
important. It's important.
yes. But I might say that. But that's another topic for another day. But,
We'll come back and talk about that more.
yes, our podcast. Oh, women and black women and white women dating. We could have a whole conversation. We could probably have a whole.
I wonder, oh gosh, like that's all, like my mind is already spinning on that conversation. Oh
Our
god.
podcast. We gotta talk about it. We gotta talk about
I get kicked out of my church on that one.
it. Whatever. I'll say all the bad things. You can say good things.
I'll leave it.
Yeah, but I just and I think more and more, and again, younger women that are being raised by women like me and younger than me that know this now, that it will, but it's just it's going to take decades more to make it happen. I think more importantly, and this is hard, is the trust between white women and black women have to be built, and I don't know how that happens, except for we've both been taught to fear each other. You're taught to fear me because I am going to fuck you over. I'm taught to fear you because you have I have an authentic nature and have power that I don't have, and I know that. So then I have to tear you down. So somewhere, if we can fix that,
Just remove, it reminds me of Maya Angelou, Dr. Maya Angelou, and the cage bird singing, like, just remove the cage and
yeah,
just be free. You
yeah,
know what I mean? Like, that's really what it feels like energetically, symbolically, and physically. Like, just move forward in freedom, right? And see each other despite the color of your skin. Something so trivial is stupid. Like, it literally makes no sense. No sense whatsoever.
Makes no sense. And it's just and we all know that, from history, if you look at the true history of the world, like how many inventions and things that Black people have done that have benefited society that got no credit for, or a white person is taking credit for it. But I mean, just even that, I just think about the way society is held back by this too,
It's
about
so
the
sad.
stupidity of it, and how it's just that we could be so much better as a country, as just a people, if we could just, yeah, not judge other people based on their skin color. And I do think to some degree, again, that you're always going to have some negative or prejudicial thoughts about folks based on their skin color. I don't know that you can avoid that,
Yeah.
but at the same time, the level of it can be very different.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
saying, oh, look, they're not driving good because they're XYZ or whatever is different than
Mm-hmm.
not, enslaving them.
Silly. It literally is silly. It's like the extreme of it is like I can make mockery of it because it's like it just doesn't, it's silly. I don't know any other term for it than it's silly. And it's silly to even ascribe to that type of mindset and to live in it and be in it and not be able to really see yourself because I'm gonna lose my power. What
You're gonna lose your power anyway, and
the
that's why
freak
that's
girl
why
is?
that's why there's a tripling down of white supremacy right now, because they know, they know that the horizon is not white.
And we talked about this the first time
Oh,
where man came from in Africa and how things migrated throughout the whole globe and the origination of mankind. Like that's
Jesus is not blonde haired and blue eyed.
Jesus is not. He was not. Man did not start from a white man. Man came from black. As you look at black, black can be as white or as black is, right? And so there's a whole spectrum of it. And the fact that, and you look at the Bible, you read the Bible, and it talks about hair of wool.
Yeah.
I'm done. I want to, we got to come back together. I just love you. I love everything about you, your energy, your laugh, your rawness, your just, all about women and just being together and just being free in your mind. And yes to therapy. Yes
Yes.
to therapy.
I think everybody needs to be in therapy all the time.
All the time. He's a freaking therapist.
There's not one single person on this planet who could not benefit from therapy. I'm sorry.
He's a therapist. Therapists have therapists.
No, yeah.
Psychologists have therapists. Psychiatrists have, everybody needs a therapist. And one thing, and we'll close in this, therapy is not one size fits all. So me and you might vibe, right?
No, I changed therapists. And sometimes you outgrow your therapist. Like I had a therapist and I really liked her and she was good for the problems I had. But when I really started getting to the meaty problems,
Yeah.
I didn't feel like she was going to push me. Like I needed to be pushed. So I asked her to refer me to somebody else. And she did. And she was very, I said, I just feel like I need somebody that's going to, address these deeper problems.
Excuse me, Miss Therapist, you're not deep enough. Can you?
Well, no, I mean, she was just, some people are just more direct. She wasn't a very, I mean, she was more of a nurturing kind of therapist. And I need to call me on my shit therapist.
Thug, right? You need the thug. So it's and you're right though, it does work that way. Seriously, it does. So don't, I think everyone should have a therapist. And I'm not just saying it because I am a therapist, but and then finding the right one. So if you get one that doesn't work, don't give up.
Yeah.
Just keep going. It's
But
just
again,
like
I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
Because I cannot say this enough.
Yeah.
You only get out of therapy what you put into it.
Hell, girl.
So if you go into it with I cannot be wrong about anything, I'm a perfect person, I'm not going to, when it starts getting into the dark stuff and the deep stuff that is not good about you, and you know it, and you know it's coming, and you bail because you don't want to face that, which I did many times.
And where's my mic at?
I mean, anyway, yeah. I'm not gonna say anything about my ex, but it's just you've got to go in with the mindset of I'm going to do the hard things and I'm going to face the shitty things about myself that I need to face in order to fix me. And, and it's not necessarily that they're, I mean, like I am a type 2 Enneagram, and I don't know if you know the Enneagram, but when I've taken all the little personality tests, right? I've done the TKI, Myers-Briggs, DISC, all the things, right? And they're also super interesting to me, but I took the Enneagram, and I'm a type 2 Enneagram, which is the helper. And the helper, you can be like, the way the Enneagram is sort of structured, this is very basic, but you can like be a negative 2, a middling 2, or like a positive 2. Negative 2s only help people out of the desire to get something out of it. So you help people with the expectation that you're going to get something in return. And, the middle ones are sort of in between. And then the positive ones are truly altruistic and do things just out of the goodness of their heart. And I saw, I had this whole image of myself as like, I'm such a good person. I'm helping all these people. But in helping them, I was really expecting them to like me or to be my friend or whatever. I set a lot of my life on expectations that were dashed. And that's a whole other topic about, let's talk about expectations and how that sets us up for failure as people. But yeah. And so it's just, and so I mean, I had to face it about myself that, and not so much now, I mean, not really at all now, but back in the day, when I started having all, I was a younger person and started having all my relationship issues, that was who I was. And you cause your own pain. And, it's not like you're doing anything totally bad. It's little things, but man, when the light bulbs start going off,
you're like, oh, that's why I really didn't need that. Like, that's why I did that.
yeah.
In some ways, it's kind of like trauma bonding in a way. You know what I mean? And it's based
Peeling back all that layers of the onion, right? And then then you start connecting things like, oh, this is why I did this. And it's just it's sort of cool in a way, because even if it's negative stuff or stuff that's not so great about you, you can see, how certain things lead to certain other things. Like I said, you may not, I mean, there's some behaviors I still have, and not about racism, but just in general about, because I have a lot of self-worth and self-esteem issues, which I think a lot of women have, but, they're tied to different things in your life. And, at least now I know what's going to trigger me, right? So like, I know if I get in a certain space or whatever, like, and so instead of crying for 3 days, I can just cry for a couple of hours and I'll be okay.
Bless your heart.
Just, crying's great. It's cathartic. I don't think it's a bad thing at all.
No, crying is not bad at all. I love speaking with you. You're probably going to get another email for another interview or a meeting. I'm going to be like, Julie, meet me here, because we're doing a podcast on this day. Get yourself together.
Seriously need to do a podcast. I've seriously been looking for somebody to do a podcast with. I want it. And I can get on, I have like 69, 70,000 followers on TikTok, so I can get some audience.
People conversations, like, and it takes a certain chemistry for that to happen. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't do this with just anybody. You couldn't do it with just anybody, right?
Yeah.
And so, I respect you. I'm serious about this. Like, you're probably going to get another email from
I'm down, and I'm serious that I'm down for it. I'm serious that I'm down for a podcast. You want to do this on a more regular basis, whether it's like
y'all stay tuned for live with Julie and Veranda. We're coming to you guys with all the things. And so I guess we'll probably be
taking Ebony and Ivory. I'm just joking. Play the song in the background. No.
It'll have to have some bop to it. Like it gotta have a beat, right?
Like salt and pepper. No.
I love it. So
but yeah, I'm always down to talk, and especially about mental health kind of stuff, because I just know how much my life has changed in the past 4 years.
Yeah.
And not because of the trauma that I endured and then the therapy, but the therapy leading me to so many insights. I mean, I'm a totally different person than I was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And yeah. So let's do it. Like, it doesn't be all year. We could just like say, oh, from these 3 months, we're gonna have 12 whatever's with us together.
So. No, like if I do it, I'm gonna commit to it, and it'll be ongoing. So yeah, let's do it. I'll get with Nkechi. We'll get some meetings set up. I'm often in Atlanta, in the Atlanta area.
Do I just virtually?
Well, I would like to do something sit down.
Okay.
Okay, anyway, so y'all thank you for joining here. Julie and
Yes.
I get this together.
Thank
And
you for having me again. I appreciate it. I do. I do enjoy talking to you too. And I know we could talk forever as we are, but yes, we're going to figure that part out. But thank you so much.